Discover the incredible moment when 20 years of family bliss was exposed and transformed forever. Emily Peterson took a deep breath as she stepped into the local diner, her pulse quickening with memories of the past 20 years, the laughter in the house, the joy of teaching those bright-eyed children. Today, however, an unexpected chill wrapped around her heart as she recognized the fragility of her perfect world. It happened, of all places, at a table near the window where old Mr. Jenkins regularly recounted tales of the town's history. He caught her eye and beckoned her over, and against her usual preference for routine, she found herself seated next to him. What began as a polite conversation soon morphed into something that rattled her core. "You know, Emily, your grandfather was quite a character," he said, eyes glinting with nostalgia. "But there were whispers, you see, whispers about financial troubles that shattered lives. Folks lost everything." Shock surged through Emily like a jolt. The man she idolized was tied to pain? How could the man who once brought her cookies after school be responsible for such ruin? The very foundation of her family's image teetered on the brink of collapse. Her heart raced. How long had she ignored the warning signs? At what point would she have to confront the truth? Mark often encouraged her, gently reminding her to question the legacy they would pass down to their children. But Emily was always the protector, the buffer, someone who sheltered her family from chaos. Now, the chaos wound its way into her perfectly woven fabric, fraying the edges. Should she speak out, risking her children's comfort and her own peace, or hide from the truth in fear of shattering everything she held close? The irony stung. She had planned to teach her kids about honesty, integrity, and community values, yet here she was, caught in a web of familial deceit. Before she could sort through the swirling emotions, her phone rang. A familiar voice interrupted her tumultuous thoughts. "Emily, I need your help." The desperation in the voice of one of her former students echoed a long-ignored urgency. People still remembered the pain, the betrayal. Would looking into her past mean opening wounds for many? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The call abruptly ended, leaving Emily grappling with the weight of her choices. Every breath felt labored. She clutched her heart, mind racing with possibilities. What would happen if she stepped into the light of truth? Could she stand up against her grandfather's legacy, each revelation shaking the core of her idyllic life? She envisioned Mark's warm smile transforming into disappointment. A fracture ran through her heart, the fear that the shadows of the past would consume her family as the heavy burden of secrets descended like fog over her once clear conscience. Emily stared ahead, mind consumed by turmoil. Was she ready to dismantle the very picture of happiness she had so carefully built? If the truth of her family's history became known, what would that mean for the children she taught, for those who looked up to her? The storm inside her could no longer be ignored. She stood on the precipice, locked in fierce rebellion against the revelation that could redefine not only her but also a town steeped in her family's unresolved legacy. The pulse of her heart echoed loudly. She had a choice to make, and it would echo long into the future. Emily returned home with a burgeoning sense of unease settling over her like a heavy blanket. The echoes of Mr. Jenkins' words played on repeat in her mind, each iteration amplifying her growing anxiety. She glanced at her children, sprawled across the living room floor, their laughter a stark contrast to the chaos swirling within her. How could she face them knowing her family's legacy was marred by secrets and deception? She stepped away from the noise, seeking sanctuary in her bedroom, shutting the door firmly behind her as if it might block out the surrounding disorder. In this solitary space, Emily felt her heart race again, this time merging with an urgency that demanded action. Should she confront Mark with her findings, or was ignorance a preferable shield? The questions spiraled, fueling a smoldering fire of conflict within. As she sat on the edge of the bed, a sudden determination surged through her. This was not merely about her grandfather's past. It was her future, her family's future, one she couldn't sacrifice for the sake of comfort. Diving into the tumultuous waters of her family's history felt daunting, yet it was necessary. Honesty had always been her guiding principle, both as a teacher and as a mother. To waver now would set a precedent for her children, one that might lead them to embrace false narratives wrapped in the guise of legacy. Emily grabbed a notebook and jotted down questions that danced in her mind. What exactly had Mr. Jenkins meant? Was her grandfather's financial desperation an isolated case, or was it tied to a pattern of exploitation that stretched far beyond her understanding? Each line written on the page became a lifeline, anchoring her as she faced the storm brewing outside. Memories of her years in the classroom flooded back, a tapestry woven from the stories and struggles of her students. They each possessed real challenges, yet their resilience shone through. Couldn't she embody that same resilience? Couldn't she step into her own power without the fear of shattering illusions? Her resolve crystallized as she considered her former student's call for help. That voice had ignited a spark. People were still hurting, longing for closure and honesty about their past. Emily realized she needed to not only uncover the truth, but share it as well. Facing her grandfather's choices might unlock the light for others entangled in similar shadows. With renewed intensity, she opened her laptop and began to research local archives, piecing together fragments of her family history. The process was painful, peeling back layers of carefully crafted illusions, but there was a thrill in reclaiming her narrative. Emily lost track of time, absorbed in the search for truth. Each discovery chipped away at her discomfort, replacing it with a sense of purpose. There was, however, a haunting echo that lingered, doubt gnawed at her mind. What if the truth led to backlash, not only against her family, but against her as well? Would she be prepared to face the repercussions of exposing secrets that others had chosen to bury? As she stared at the flickering screen, the questions weighed heavy. In that moment of reflection, she caught her breath. Clarity erupted within her. This journey was not a burden, but an opportunity for growth, both for herself and those around her. Emily stood on the precipice of transformation, and as she saved her notes, a new idea burgeoned. Perhaps she could approach Mr. Jenkins for more information, perhaps even take it upon herself to address this pain publicly. The moment felt pivotal, inherently foundational, yet she had no idea how it would unfold. Her resolve only deepened, knowing she had sparked something significant within her. Opening the door once more, Emily stepped back into the chaos of family life, committed to facing whatever the future would bring. The truth demanded confrontation, and with each step forward, she felt lighter. Yet, as she sat down to dinner with her family, tension coiled tightly in her gut. Would she summon the courage to engage Mark in this burgeoning quest? Tonight, she pondered, might be the night when she would test the boundaries of truth against the very fabric of her family bonds. The time had come to face more than just her past. It was now about her very future. Emily found herself seated at the dinner table, the clatter of plates and murmur of her children's laughter swirling around her, yet she felt isolated, like a diver in deep waters grappling with the pressure above. Mark, her husband, chattered away, unaware of the tempest brewing behind her calm facade. She watched his eyes light up as he spoke about his day, punctuating his stories with laughter that rang dimly to her ears. How could she disrupt this fragile bliss? A question flitted through her mind, sharp and angular. How could she unravel the truth without tearing her family apart? Waiting for a moment when the conversation lulled, Emily's heart pounded. She was acutely aware of how each word she might utter could shift the ground beneath her family's feet. As she looked at their faces, her children's innocence pulled her away from the precipice of confrontation, yet it was her own fear of the unknown that shackled her resolve. She knew there was no escaping the inevitable. The truth was a landmine waiting to be uncovered. "Mark," she began, her voice a careful whisper against the backdrop of domestic harmony. He paused, looking over with that familiar blend of curiosity and concern. "Can we talk about something serious?" The air thickened as her words hung in the silence. Emily braced herself as he put down his fork. For a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of apprehension in his eyes. What did he sense? Did he already know something was amiss? Of course, Em. What's on your mind? His tone was gentle, but Emily could hear the unspoken questions layered within. Taking a deep breath, Emily shifted in her seat. I've been doing some research about my grandfather and the business. It seems there are some things that need to be addressed. The hesitation in her voice was an invitation for Mark to probe, but she didn't want to divulge everything just yet. Mark's brow furrowed slightly. What kind of things? Is everything okay? Her words twisted in her throat. Should she unload the weight of historical indiscretion, or should she tread carefully, revealing only shards of truth? The conflict raged within her even as she conducted this subtle dance of dialogue, both wanting to enlighten and shield him from a bitter legacy. Let us just say his choices weren't as noble as we might have thought, Emily finally said, a tremor in her voice betraying her internal discord. Mark sat back, digesting her statement. The quiet that followed felt both heavy and liberating. For the first time, Emily recognized the power that honesty had to create bridges between them, even if it also threatened to erect walls. You sound worried. I am, she admitted, her vulnerability spilling forth. Worried about what revealing this could mean for us, for our children. If what I've learned is true, it could change everything. Mark leaned in closer, the concern deepening in his expression. You're not alone in this, Emily. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. This reassurance cracked a sliver of her apprehension. As they resumed dinner, Emily felt a flicker of hope ignite in the pit of her stomach. Maybe, just maybe, facing the storm of her family's legacy could fortify rather than fracture their bonds. But that glimmer of optimism was interrupted by another troubling thought. If she proceeded, how many other secrets would she uncover later that night? After the children were tucked in and the house settled into a semblance of peace, Emily sat at her desk, determined to connect with Mr. Jenkins. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling with anticipation and fear. She knew that a conversation with him could be a pivotal turning point, not for just her, but for all those affected by her grandfather's choices. As she reflected on the conversations she had navigated with Mark and the burgeoning sense of urgency within, one realization crystallized. She needed to confront not only the history of her family, but also the boundaries of her own courage. The prospect of what she might uncover loomed ahead like a shadow, dense and foreboding. With a deep breath and a steadying resolve, she typed out a message to Mr. Jenkins. It was time to uncover the truth and bring the unspoken into the light. Would this journey breathe new life into her family's narrative, or would it forever displace the foundation she had fought so hard to build? In that moment, as she hit send, Emily understood a fundamental truth. The next chapter of her life was about to begin, steeped in uncertainty and potential for growth. She was no longer merely a passive observer of her family legacy. She was ready to confront it, armed with the knowledge and experiences she'd gained thus far. As she prepared for the possibly daunting exchange, Emily's thoughts began racing. Would she find in that truth the clarity she sought, or would it unravel threads of connection she could not afford to lose? The prospect of facing the consequences loomed before her, an echoing question in the folds of her resolve. What was she truly willing to sacrifice for the sake of her family's legacy? Morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the otherwise cluttered countertop where remnants of last night's dinner lay abandoned. The smell of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, a familiar comfort, yet Emily found no solace in its aroma today. Instead, her focus was consumed by the weight of her decision. The message to Mr. Jenkins felt like a stone dropped into a pond, and she braced herself for the ripples it would create. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, each sip felt heavy, punctuated by thoughts of her children and the life Mark believed they were leading. She had to be ready for whatever consequence loomed on the horizon. Did she have the strength to navigate the potential fallout? The thought sent a shiver through her. For the first time, Emily confronted the reality that her search for truth could alter the very essence of their family unit. The rhythmic noise of cereal being poured filled the breakfast table rather than Mark's cheerful chatter. With the children munching away, oblivious to their mother's internal turmoil, she noticed how innocent their giggles seemed. It was a stark contrast to the storm brewing in her heart. "Mom, can you help me with my math homework after school?" her son, Charlie, asked, a smudge of milk across his cheek, punctuating his request with a melodic innocence that cut through her thoughts. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied, forcing a smile that barely touched her eyes. How could she be present for them when all she could think about was the past? After breakfast, she dropped the kids off at school and made her way to her office. The familiar route felt now like walking an unfamiliar path in a strange land. The cracks in her well-ordered life began to show, but she pressed on, determined to face the day. As she stepped through the glass doors, the atmosphere buzzed with a juxtaposition of routine and anticipation. Finding a quiet moment in her office, she opened her laptop, staring at the blank screen, the cursor blinking back at her mockingly. It was now or never. Clicking on the email thread with Mr. Jenkins felt both daring and foolhardy. She needed to prepare for the conversation. She could not afford to appear unsteady or unprepared. Emily took a moment to breathe deeply, forcing herself to slow down. She had spent years compartmentalizing her feelings, relying on logic to dictate her actions, yet here she was on the precipice of a revelation that threatened to send her spiraling. Where once she found safety in detachment, she now perceived it as a cage. As minutes slipped into an hour, she penned down questions to frame their conversation details about her grandfather's decisions, any hidden documents he might possess, any insight he could lend on the narrative of her family's past. It wasn't just about uncovering information. It was about reclaiming her identity, shaping her new reality from a legacy tainted by silence. The phone rang, jolting her back into the present. It was Mark, his voice bright and full of enthusiasm, oblivious to the turmoil swirling inside her. "Hey, how's your day going? Any exciting plans?" "Just some work," she replied without elaboration, her mind racing between the layers of her message and the imminent call with Mr. Jenkins. Could she maintain the facade of normalcy while unraveling such vital truths? "Want to grab lunch together later?" His suggestion contrasted sharply with her internal chaos, a haven amidst the storm. "Yes, that sounds great," she said, though doubt nagged at her. Could she bear to keep the secret from him, even for a little longer? Lunch came too quickly, and as they settled into a cozy booth, Emily felt her heart race at the prospect of confession. Mark recounted his day, laughing at inside jokes with ease, while Emily felt the words she wanted to speak choke in her throat. "Emily, are you all right?" he asked, sensing her distraction. His attention was a warm balm, whispering encouragement to let down her facade, yet the truth felt heavier with every second that passed. Would she reveal it today or wait until she had more answers? The answer danced in the back of her mind like a teasing specter. Mark needed to be part of this, but could she risk their equilibrium? Before she could answer, the phone buzzed fiercely on the table. It was a message from Mr. Jenkins. "I'm available for a call this afternoon. Let me know when you're ready." Emily's stomach churned. The crossroads had arrived, the thrilling unknown beckoning her forward. Would she step into the void, or retreat back into the comfort of silence? The uncertainty bore down, yet beneath the fear lay a determination burning brightly. It was finally time to confront the past. With a heavy breath, she looked Mark in the eyes, searching for the courage she was still wrestling to find. "There's something I need to talk to you about," she began, feeling time stretch impossibly thin. The moment held potential, but she was acutely aware that a revelation lingered on the other side. What impact would it have on their lives and the fragile threads holding them together? Just as his brow furrowed with concern, the question loomed like a specter. What would be revealed before the day was done? Mark's eyes narrowed, not out of suspicion but concern, and Emily felt her heart gallop beneath the weight of unspoken words. The moment stretched, tension thrumming in the air like a guitar string pulled too tight. His brow creased, the joviality of before fading, as he leaned closer, a gentle invitation for her to continue. "Emily, you're scaring me a little. What's going on?" She opened her mouth, ready to articulate the chaos swirling inside her, but nothing emerged. Instead, images of family dinners, holiday laughter, and of Charlie and Lily growing up in a home filled with love flickered through her mind. If she said the words dancing just beyond her lips, would it all shatter? Taking a steadying breath, she fought to hang on to her words. "I've been talking to Mr. Jenkins," she finally said, managing to keep her voice from shaking. However, the name, for Emily, was a lightning rod, sparking the conversation she had dreaded. "Mr. Jenkins? The lawyer?" Mark's confusion masked a sudden swell of anxiety. "About what?" "About my grandfather's estate, and some things that were kept from us." The admission felt like a small release, yet still weighed heavily. She could feel the tide pulling away from the shore. The comfort of denial shifted underfoot. Mark's chair creaked as he leaned back, arms crossed, defensively. "What do you mean things that were kept from us? Are you sure it's worth the trouble?" His voice held a tremor, the foundation of their shared life shifting just as her heart surged with determination. "It is worth it. Or, at least, it has to be." The urgency clawed at her. "Mark, I need to know what I'm dealing with. All this time, we've built our lives on stories that might not even be true. I need clarity." There was a moment of silence, both of them caught in the consequences of her burgeoning truth. She saw the gears turning in Mark's mind, the fraying threads of trust beginning to unravel. The tension sparked a wave of self-awareness in her need to seek answers stark against what it might do to their security. "Emily, what if this changes everything for us? What if the past is too painful to confront?" His words landed like a gentle blow, rippling through her resolve. It was a fair question, but one she couldn't afford to ponder while dragging secrets into the light. Wasn't it also painful to live in a world where the foundation itself was suspect? "I know it's risky, but hiding from the truth is a different kind of pain. I can't keep this to myself anymore. It has to come out, even if it means upheaval." She could feel the heat of defiance rising, the realization that her pursuit of truth was not merely about family, but ultimately about herself. With a sigh, Mark's shoulders slumped slightly. "I just don't want to lose what we have. You know that, right?" His vulnerability pierced her, and her heart clenched. She reached across the table, took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "I don't want to lose that either. But I need to be whole for us, for the kids. For my own peace of mind." As she spoke, realization struck her like lightning. The familiar pattern of her life, held by the tight cords of routine and safety, was about to snap. She was awakening to a version of herself that demanded an identity untethered from others' expectations. Mark studied her intensely, a mix of fear and admiration in his eyes. "You're more courageous than I realized," he said quietly. The acknowledgement resonated within her, igniting a flicker of the confidence she had long suppressed. She had always been the glue, the organizer, the one to take responsibility, yet now, she sensed an inner strength burgeoning, ready to break free from the shell her life had become. "Let us do this. I'll call him," Emily said, firming her resolve. With a shared glance, they both knew there was no turning back. The shadows of the past loomed large, but she could feel the light of self-discovery edging ever closer. As she reached for her phone, ready to initiate a call that could alter everything, an unexpected thought crashed into her resolve. What if there were dangers intertwined in her family's past, lurking just out of reach, poised to emerge? The new weight of this uncertainty hung palpably, beckoning a deeper exploration as she hit the call button. Would she be prepared for whatever truth awaited them, or would her resolve falter when faced with the real ramifications of her search? Tension rippled in the air as the dial tone pulsed. What awaited her on the other end would test the very limits of her newfound courage. As the phone rang, each beep echoed her racing heartbeat, a steady reminder of the moment she was resolutely stepping into. With every pulse of the tone, she grappled with the enormity of what was about to unfold. Emily's mind flashed through scenarios. What if Mr. Jenkins possessed the key to something dangerous? How would she confront whatever secrets lay hidden? She exhaled slowly, trying to center herself. "Emily?" The voice darted through the receiver, breaking the spell. Mr. Jenkins was cordial but pragmatic, his tone weaving authority into casual conversation. "I was just about to call you back." "Oh, hi," she stammered, heat creeping into her cheeks. "I wanted to talk about my grandfather's estate, the things you mentioned in our last meeting." There was a brief silence.
Yes.
"I understand you're seeking clarity about your family's history." His words surged inside her, igniting a mix of anxiety and determination. She nodded as if he could see her, grasping the phone tighter.
Yes, I owe it to myself.
What's the first step? A review of the will would be prudent, but there are layers. Your family's narrative is more complex than you've been led to believe, he replied, infusing their conversation with gravity. Complex? She echoed, her stomach tightening. Let's meet. There are documents that require your attention. It's better in person. Despite her trepidation, an undeniable sense of purpose invigorated her spirit. "Okay, when can we meet?" "Tomorrow. I'll prepare everything." Hanging up, Emily felt a whirl of emotions. Questions enveloped her mind. What complexities could the documents unveil? How deep was the history that could alter her sense of identity? She found herself teetering at the edge of a precipice, the thrill of discovery battling with the fear of what lay below. After dinner, she sat alone in the dim light of her kitchen, flanked by the shadows of her usual routines. Mark and the children had retreated to the living room, laughter echoing from their gathering. Momentarily, escapism beckoned, yet the weight of her commitment pressed down with an uncomfortable intensity. Every bite of food felt leaden, moments stretching into eternity as she battled her thoughts. A search for truth could dissect her family apart, but could it ultimately mend her fractured sense of self? Her reflection stared back at her from the polished surface of the table, an image that felt distant. Was that woman really her? It was time to step into a world that demanded bravery, to discover latent instincts buried beneath years of expectation and conformity. As she cleared the dinner plates, she caught sight of Mark, engrossed in a story, a smile escaping her lips. Their life was a comforting tapestry, yet she was no longer willing to let it remain just that, a tapestry woven from obscured threads of her family's past. If she was to build a future built on honesty, she needed to confront the unseen. The next morning came too swiftly, tinged with both trepidation and thrilling anticipation. The meeting with Mr. Jenkins beckoned like a storm she couldn't avert. Emily dressed deliberately, each piece of her attire chosen to inspire courage: a crisp blouse, a tailored blazer she hadn't worn in years, an old pair of heels that once felt familiar. As she navigated the town, parking at the office building that loomed intimidatingly above her, a rush of apprehension washed over her. Would she truly be ready to face the realities waiting behind those office doors? With each step toward the entrance, determination solidified within her. The tight, constricting cords of her past were already fraying, exposing a path of renewal. With her heart racing, she pushed through the door, ready to confront it all: the potential heartbreak, the truths buried deep, and the reformative power of self-discovery. There was no turning back now. As she stepped into the waiting room, Mr. Jenkins stood to greet her, a file folder in his hands. "Thank you for coming, Emily. I think we need to discuss some family matters that could change everything you thought you knew."
The
room felt charged with gravity, each word laced with meaning. She didn't just walk into that office. She stepped into a new version of herself, brimming with courage and a willingness to embrace whatever truths awaited her. Would this meeting redefine her concept of family, or would it unearth dangerous ghosts she wasn't prepared to face? Emily's breath caught. The moment of truth had arrived. Mr. Jenkins motioned for Emily to take a seat as he placed the folder on the table between them. The faint whir of the air conditioning provided an almost surreal backdrop to their meeting, its humming blending with the pounding of her heart. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, trying to quell her nerves. "Are you ready to begin?" he asked, his voice steady but edged with the weight of the impending revelations. "Yes," she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. "What do I need to know?" He opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents that seemed to pulse with stories waiting to be unearthed. "This here is your grandfather's will, as well as some correspondence and records that might shed light on your family's past." He glanced up at her, gauging her reaction. "It's important that you approach this information with an open mind." Emily nodded, her determination rising. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. As he handed her the will, she felt the cool paper in her hands, a tangible piece of her history. "Let us start with the will," he suggested, leaning back slightly, giving her space. Emily unfolded the document, her eyes scanning the text that looked both familiar and foreign. Names she recognized intermingled with those she had never known, each line a thread in a tapestry that was beginning to feel frayed. "Who are these people?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "Mr. Jenkins leaned forward, his expression serious. "Some may be relatives, others could be acquaintances or beneficiaries. It's vital to understand that your grandfather's relationships were more complicated than what you've been told." Rivulets of anxiety washed over her as she glimpsed the names. If the connections were complicated, what truths could they unveil? Did they encompass family secrets that were meant to be buried? Or were they simply aspects of a life barely acknowledged? As the conversation deepened, Mr. Jenkins navigated through the documents, revealing letters that spoke of disputes, affiliations, and even estrangements. The emotional resonance of those words echoed within her. Each revelation felt like a jagged shard piercing through her carefully constructed image of her family. "You see, Emily," he said gently, "understanding your family as history means not only knowing who they were, but also comprehending the choices they made and why. These choices often shape identities, sometimes in ways we don't even realize." A pit formed in her stomach. Had she been living a shadowed version of her life, dictated by the narratives woven by others? This profound understanding tugged at the fibers of her identity. "And what if I learn things I'm not prepared for? What if the truth fractures everything I thought I knew?" "That risk is always present," he admitted, his eyes steady. "But uncovering the truth can also empower you. Embrace it rather than evade it. This can be your opportunity for growth, for realignment with your true values." As the conversation unfolded, Emily felt the weight of her past distinctively shift. The layers of her family's narrative began to unravel, and within them, she sensed the seeds of self-awareness growing. Each document, each interaction, presented a choice to confront, acknowledge, and redefine. Eventually, Mr. Jenkins paused, observing her reaction. "Emily, the choice is yours. Will you explore these complexities? Or will you let them dictate a future built upon half-truths?" Her mind raced, grappling with the implications of that question. Perhaps this was the moment energy she sought had been waiting for all along, the moment where her past collided with her potential future, igniting a path toward authenticity. "I need time to process," she replied, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "Of course. I'll give you all the time you need." He closed the folder gently, showcasing the respect he had for her journey. Emily left the office feeling invigorated yet unsettled. Each step felt significant, carrying the weight of potential transformation. She had not only stepped deeper into her family's past, but also closer to discovering parts of herself that had been suppressed. But as she reached her car, a thought flickered in her mind. What if the documents revealed connections she might not be ready to face? What if they jeopardized her current reality with Mark and the kids? In that moment of uncertainty, she recognized something profound. The strength to confront her complexities was intertwined with her willingness to act. As she sat in the car, a rush of determination swept over her. She could no longer shy away from the shadows of her identity. She had to confront them head-on. Emily drove home, the road a blur, her thoughts racing. What would she decide when faced with the truth? Would she embrace the tangled heritage, or would she attempt to weave a narrative of her own that excluded the painful threads? As the familiar streetlights illuminated her path, a new question took root. Was she ready to embrace the repercussions of her family's legacy, and how might it reshape her future? As she pulled into the driveway, Emily felt as if the house loomed over her, a silent witness to the internal storm raging within. Stepping inside, she was greeted by the comforting scent of dinner simmering on the stove and the laughter of her children drifting from the living room. But instead of the warmth that usually flooded her heart, a chill ran down her spine. The contrast felt jarring, a reminder of the complexity she now sat upon. "Mom, you're back," Sarah squeaked, bounding toward her, arms spread wide in expectation of a hug. Emily momentarily embraced her daughter, reveling in the innocent joy that radiated from her. Yet, in her heart, she grappled with the duality of her existence, the mother filled with love and the daughter on the precipice of confronting a turbulent legacy. "Everything okay?" Mark asked, his brow slightly furrowed as he walked into the room. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, momentarily distracted from the dinner preparations. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," Emily replied, her tone more evasive than she intended. She watched as Mark's concern deepened. Did he sense her internal divide? "Dinner will be ready soon. You can share whatever's bothering you over a meal." The invitation felt comforting, yet suffocating. Sharing with Mark, whom she loved fiercely, meant potentially unraveling the seams of their idyllic life together. What if the truth she unearthed distanced her from him, from their family? As the evening unfolded, Emily put on a brave face, participating in the lively exchange of stories that peppered the dinner table. She smiled at her children's laughter and savored Mark's insights into his day. But deep in her mind, shadows danced, whispering secrets hidden beneath the surface. Between bites of mashed potatoes, she considered how to maneuver the conversation toward her newfound revelations without disrupting the harmony they shared. Each attempt she performed to engage felt like an insincere parody of her true self. How could she open the door to her past when the threshold seemed so perilous? After dinner, the remnants of a typical family evening were lifted, but Emily's thoughts remained cluttered. She slipped into the quiet of her bedroom while the kids settled in for a movie with their father. The walls around her were adorned with reminders of their life together, a curated showcase of happiness. But they felt heavy now, reminders of everything she might risk. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she pulled out her phone, staring for a moment at the messages from Mr. Jenkins. Each ding felt like a reminder of the truth awaiting her, a truth that could potentially shatter the life she had built. The weight of her decision enveloped her. The choice she had to make was not just about family legacies, but about who she wanted to be. Did she want to continue shielding herself from the shadows? Or did the courage she sought lie in facing them head-on? Suddenly, she felt a resolve igniting within her. This was not just about uncovering family secrets. It was about rediscovering herself. What advantages would she gain in understanding the layers of her existence and, ultimately, allowing her family to share that journey with her? With renewed determination, she realized the impending choice loomed, a decision drawn starkly before her, to shy away from the truth she feared or to uncover it in hopes of deeper authenticity. As she stepped out to join the others, she sensed that a tidal wave of change was coming, and with it, the undeniable truth emerged. She had to initiate the conversation with Mark, to risk vulnerability and share her intentions. This was the beginning of unearthing the life she had been afraid to embrace, but as she called out to him, she paused, the tension tightening in her stomach. Would he support her in this journey? Or would the revelations pull their lives apart in ways she couldn't yet comprehend? With those thoughts heavy in her mind, she felt the impending storm of her choices grow ever closer. Emily stepped into the living room, the laughter and warmth of her family enveloping her like a familiar blanket. Yet, she felt like an imposter in her own home. The bustling scene, so picturesque, contrasted sharply with the tempest inside her. Her resolve flickered, intertwining with doubt whenever she locked eyes with Mark. "Mom, can we have popcorn?" Sarah interrupted Emily's thoughts, her wide eyes brimming with excitement. The innocence of her daughter's request tugged gently at Emily's heartstrings, stirring a sense of urgency. She wanted to respond with the carefree energy that normally defined her, but felt tethered by the weight of her unspoken truths. "Sure thing, sweetheart," Emily replied, forcing a smile, her mind adrift in the prospect of a conversation. It felt almost ludicrous to think that something as simple as popcorn could mask such profound inner turmoil. Once the children were settled, Mark joined her in the kitchen. The soft clinks of utensils punctuated their silence. His presence flooded Emily with warmth yet amplified her anxiety. She unwrapped a bag of popcorn, the piercing scent rising, almost echoing the noise of her thoughts. "Emily," he said, his tone gentle yet probing, "are you all right? You seem a bit distant tonight." Her heart raced. This was the moment, the opportunity to bridge the chasm. But the words tangled in her throat. What if she misstepped? What if she crumbled their cherished facade? I've been thinking," she began, her voice wavering. "About us, about family." Mark raised an eyebrow, encouraging without pressing. Emily took a breath, feeling her cheeks flush. It was now or never. "I've been digging into some family history. There are things I didn't know, things that I might need to share," she attempted, her voice barely above a whisper. He scanned her expression, concern swirling in his penetrating gaze. "What sort of things? You know you can tell me anything, right?" The air felt heavy with expectation as Emily's fingers grazed the popcorn bowl, a tangible tether to what was normal and safe. "It's about my mom, my grandparents. There might be things that change how we see our family lineage." She noticed the shift in his demeanor, the slight tightening of his jaw as he processed her words. Did he grasp the magnitude of her revelation? "Okay," he finally said, his voice steady. "But you don't have to face this alone. We'll figure it out together." His reassurance was a balm, but felt couched in an unspoken worry that loomed larger than ever. Could their bond endure such revelations? That night, sleep eluded Emily as she replayed the day in her mind. Beneath the quiet hum of her family's laughter, the specter of her discoveries echoed. She mused on how to approach Mr. Jenkins. Would he be an ally in her journey or a reminder of vulnerabilities long buried? Emily believed that every unfolding story had the power to alter perspectives. What if embracing her past transformed not just her understanding but the collective identity of her family? The potential for growth lurked like shadows creeping along the walls of her mind. As dawn approached, so did her clarity. It wasn't just the revelations she feared, but the scariness of true connection, the depth of vulnerability that would force her to confront not just her family as secrets, but her own. On her walk to the office that morning, Emily felt the familiar rhythm of the city begin anew, yet she recognized her own heartbeat quickening at the thought of the upcoming conversation with Mr. Jenkins. Would she discover more than the forbidden depths of her family's past? As the office loomed ahead, Emily felt the chill of uncertainty wash over her. What incredible truths awaited her, waiting like undiscovered peaks on the horizon. With resolve, she pushed open the office door, ready to face whatever awaited her within. The door creaked open at Mr. Jenkins's office, and Emily stepped inside, the anticipation of revelation churning in her stomach. She had spent the night weighing the balance of family integrity against the need for truth. Now her journey was pressing forward, and she was resolute. "Good morning, Emily," Mr. Jenkins greeted her, offering a warm smile that seemed genuine but held the gravity of the task ahead. "Ready to continue?" Her heart pulsed with a mixture of dread and excitement. "Yes, I am." She took a seat, feeling the office's weighty ambience settle around her like a cloak. This moment was pivotal. Reshaping her past was integral to forging her future. Mr. Jenkins opened the file and began to discuss the components of her grandfather's history, peeling back layers she had long avoided. "Your family has interwoven connections in this town," he said, revealing letters and documents that illustrated a complexity far removed from the buoyant legacy she had anticipated. Each page felt like a weight dropping from her shoulders, discomforting yet liberating. "Why was none of this ever mentioned to us?" she asked, the frustration rising within her, accompanied by the exhilaration of unearthing long-silenced truths. "It often comes down to perceptions we align ourselves with, Emily," he explained. "Your grandfather operated under the guise of respectability, but that facade came with consequences for others." Emily felt her breath hitch in her throat. It wasn't just her grandfather's legacy that hung in the balance, it was her identity. Would you be willing to confront this? Mr. Jenkins queried. Embracing your past can help redefine how you move forward. The question reverberated in her mind. Could she revamp her family narrative, reconciling the cherished memories she had crafted with the raw truths she was now discovering? Yes, she realized. I will confront it, she declared, her voice steady. I want my children to grow up understanding real legacies, not just the glamour of what we've built. With that realization, Emily not only accepted her task but acknowledged the transformation awaiting her. Mr. Jenkins nodded appreciatively. You have the courage to link the past to future possibilities. Let us arrange for you to speak to those impacted by your grandfather's choices. They deserve a voice too. Days turned into weeks as Emily initiated conversations with those touched by her family's history. Each meeting felt less like a burden and more like a reunion of sorts. She faced people's pain, lending her ear to their stories. Their vulnerability opened a sea of compassion within her, revealing layers of her character she had not yet explored. With every dialogue, she could sense her unease fading, replaced fully with a burgeoning confidence. The authenticity she unearthed connected her past with her present, driving out the shadows and breathing clarity into her future. Returning home one evening, she found Mark waiting, his face etched with curiosity. How did everything go? A smile broke through her lips, illuminating her heart. It went exceedingly well. I've learned so much more than I ever knew. Is this what you wanted? He asked, genuine concern creeping into his voice. It's more than I wanted, it's what my soul craved, she replied, an unwavering certainty lining her words. I feel liberated, empowered to construct a legacy rooted in truth. Mark stepped closer, his eyes glimmering with admiration. I've seen such growth in you, Emily. I knew you had it in you. For the first time since unveiling her family's shadows, she felt solid, capable, and self-fulfilled. In the days and months following, Emily infused this newfound vigor into her teaching, embracing her own role as a storyteller. She wouldn't just speak of histories, but would share the profound dichotomies of truth and deception, thus equipping her students with tools for integrity. As her story transformed, so did the conversations with Mark. They evolved to be deeper, more candid exchanges that fortified their bond. Fostering an honest environment at home enriched their lives, showing their children the immense strength that arises from vulnerability. On a radiant spring afternoon, Emily stood before her class, a familiar excitement in the air. She encapsulated the lessons of honesty and legacy, mirroring the journey she had undertaken. We often bury our histories out of fear. Her voice radiated integrity and resilience. But I learned firsthand that we possess the power to reframe narratives, to own them. We can alter perceptions and forge paths from pain to empowerment. With proud smiles on their faces, her children absorbed every word, and Emily felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had achieved something monumental, not just unveiling family secrets, but empowering new generations to redefine their histories and foster genuine connections. In the glow of that moment, standing strong in her identity, a profound assurance settled within her. Emily Peterson was no longer merely a custodian of her grandfather's legacy. She was a pioneer crafting the next chapter of her family's story, a legacy built on truth, acceptance, and growth. Now is the time for you to embrace your journey of transformation. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, as every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights are invaluable. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Show your support for the power of personal overcoming stories.